When you go from having the first germ of an idea for something to writing your first draft, do you spend a lot of time sort of really digging into and thinking you really, really know your characters inside out before you start that first draft, and do you outline and do a treatment and know every scene, or do you just kind of crack on with your first draft and then rewrite?
Yeah, I do the lots of notes and beats and like try and figure out the story before typing, because I find that typing is really horrible, and it just hurts your body and your mind. To sit in front of a blank screen and, oh, now what's next? I like to just have the whole plan out in front of me and know. And basically how I write is I'll start with the beginning and the end. I just want to really like visually, or like just something that I think is like, this would be a cool way to end a movie, and this would be a cool last image for an audience to see. This would be a cool first image, and this would be a cool way to open a film. And then I'll start, and then I'll put in some scenes throughout. I think this would be a great scene. And then eventually, when I've got enough of these scenes or sequences, then lazily just glue them all together with some sort of connecting scenes. But that's it, really. That's sort of that's my style. And when I know what it is, then I can write really fast. But if I'm just sitting there with, like, if you were to say, hey, write a story about, you know, a soothsayer on a mission to find some herbs in a fantasy land, and then I just had to look at a blank page, I'd be there for a year without typing anything, unless I sat down and like wrote out and figured it all out before.
What were your inspiration for Jojo Rabbit, except the book Cajun Skies? Sorry, I have a letter for you after to give you. I have many things to say.
So Jojo Rabbit is a film that, just for those of you who don't know, it's a film that I've just shot and I'm editing at the moment. It's set in World War II, and it's a, what do you call it? What do I say? It's not a comedy, it's a art comedy. No, it's an emotional comedy. What did we say it was? Smart comedy.
Dramedy. A dramedy.
About a little boy in the Hitler Youth who's trying to be the best Nazi he can.
And you're in it?
And I'm in it.
And you play?
Hitler. And that's it. Spoiler alert. They lose.
With Jojo Rabbit, so when did you start writing? What?
I started writing in 2011.
Yeah.
And then shot this year. So I think basically all of my scripts have taken about over 6 years.
And do you write then? Does that mean that you're writing 3 or 4 on the go always?
Well, I wrote that, and then I went and made What We Do in the Shadows and Wilder People and 4, and then came back and shot this year. But that's the way I prefer to write. And this is my little trick that none of you will want to do. I will write a draft, and then I'll put it away for a year or so, and then or even 2 years, or even 3 years, and then I'll come back to it and I'll read it and I go, who wrote this shit? And then I will read it like maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I will throw that away and then rewrite it from page 1 based on the memory of what I read. And then my 120-page script will suddenly be 80 pages, and it'll just be the bare bones and just like the important parts, or the things that I can remember from reading the script. And so I think that's quite a good filter system. And then when you have like this very sort of bare bones short version of your story, then you can add back in some tonal stuff and some more jokes and shit and stuff like that. But yeah, so that takes way longer than anyone wants to do.
How many of those scripts do you have in the drawer? Like, how many do you have?
Well, it's just I just put them in a
chest.
A little drive, and then put that somewhere. Well, I don't want to throw it away. But I make sure I don't look at it again.
Yeah.
How many hours of actual typing can you do in a day? And do you also call procrastination important research?
I don't call it important research. Well, who knows? I mean, I end up... So, for instance, I'm like, and then the character turns up and it's Trans Am. I must look at Trans Ams. And then I'll spend 3 hours looking at Trans Ams and then try and buy one. And then, because I think I need to own one to know if the character should drive one. And then eventually I'll then I'll say, what am I doing? What? You should just drive a Toyota. And then I'll get back into things. But so it's useless for the script, but it's good for me to know more about Trans Ams. In case I ever need to talk about Trans Ams. And so I try my hardest to turn the internet off when I'm writing. But in terms of hours of typing, I try and spend hardly any hours typing. I really do. I do have like that, like, what do you call it here? OSH, RSI. I get that a bit when I'm typing. Like I just don't like it. So I try and like, okay, now I know what I'm going to write, and then I'll stop. But maybe 3 hours a day.
Do you ever leave?
Is that lazy? Is it? I don't know. I don't know what anyone else does.
Do you ever stop halfway through knowing what you're actually writing so you've got something to pick up on the next day?
No. Sometimes I used to do this thing, a friend of mine came up with this really great system, which is when he was writing multiple things. So sometimes I'm writing multiple scripts, which is, this is a good system. So you break up your workload into 20-minute breaks, and you set a time for 20 minutes, and at the end of that 20 minutes, then you force yourself to move on to the next script. And then after that 20 minutes, you force yourself to move on to the next project. So maybe you do that with 3 things. So every hour you're working 20 minutes on 3 projects. Then what's good about it is you've only spent 40 minutes away from the original project. And so at the end of that 40 minutes, you still remember what ideas you left off at. So it's not like, oh, I was really need to finish this idea and give myself another 10 minutes. If you just force yourself to stop, you won't forget where you were and you'll go on to the next thing. And I found that that's quite good if you're under pressure to write lots of stuff at the same time.